My cheating wife dropped to her knees, clutched my jacket, and whispered through tears, "I don't want to lose you." I looked down at her and replied, "You didn't lose me today. You lost me 6 months ago when you decided my reliability was boring, when you let him into our house through the back gate. Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe." The moment I walked through the door, I could feel something was off. There was laughter, quiet, breathy, and cut off fast. The kind you don't share with a friend, especially not in secret like that. Sandra was standing at the sink, phone still in her hand. When she turned around, her smile dropped, like she'd forgotten how to put it on. "Evening," I said, setting my work bag down gently. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. There's a certain kind of silence that screams louder than any words ever could. She slid her phone into her back pocket and turned back to the dishes. "You're home early." I walked into the kitchen, letting the heavy silence settle between us. The clink of silverware in the drying rack filled the air, the space where honesty should have been. "I'll ask once," I said, keeping my tone steady. "Is there someone else?" Her hand stopped moving. A plate slipped in her grip and knocked against the sink. She turned around slowly, narrowing her eyes like she was getting ready to put on a show. "What kind of question is that?" she asked. "A fair one." "There's no one, Michael. Don't be ridiculous." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just tired of pretending I don't hear things. The late-night calls, the whispers and giggles. You haven't looked me in the eye for 2 months." She scoffed and shook her head, like I'd accused her of something she didn't deserve. "So now I can't even have a laugh without you playing detective?" "I didn't say that," I replied. "But if you want out, just say the word. We can do this clean. No drama. You keep the house. I'll take the apartment near the park. We split, everything fair." That's when it happened. Her face twisted, not with guilt, but with panic. "Unbelievable," she snapped, grabbing a towel and slamming it on the counter. "You want to divorce me because I laughed on the phone?" "I want clarity," I said simply. "Oh, how noble," she mocked. "You've always been like this, quiet, smug, acting like you're above it all. You think handing me a neat little exit plan makes you some kind of saint. I think it makes me honest." Her voice cracked, rising with a fury I hadn't seen in years. "You don't get to decide how this ends. You don't get to act like you're the better person while accusing me of whatever this is." I didn't flinch. "I'm not accusing. I'm offering peace." "You're walking away," she screamed. I gave her one last look, tired, but not broken. "No," I said. "I'm stepping aside." Then I picked up my bag, walked down the hall, and left her standing in the kitchen with rage shaking in her clenched fists. That was my kitchen too. My table. My Tuesday night routine. I was a middle manager at a steel fabrication plant. Steady hours, same lunch spot every day, same faces. I'd built my life on predictability and routine. I came home at 6:10 every evening, hung my keys on the hook by the door, and Sandra would be there. Usually cooking, sometimes already eating. For 10 years, that was our rhythm. Until today, and I had a feeling that rhythm just broke for good. The next week, Sandra tried to turn the house into something it hadn't been in years. The smell of roasted garlic hit me the moment I opened the front door Monday evening. The lights were low. The jazz playlist we hadn't touched since our 3rd anniversary was drifting from the speaker in the corner. And there she was, standing in the kitchen in that navy blouse she used to save for birthdays and visitors, plating dinner like we were still trying to impress each other. "Hope you're hungry," she said lightly, not turning around right away. "I made the mushroom risotto you like." I hung my keys on the hook. "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice as casual as I could. She smiled like it cost her something. "It's just been a while since we sat down together properly. I thought we could." She hesitated, then tried again. "Talk." I just nodded, took off my jacket, and washed my hands. At the table, we ate in near silence. She asked how work was. I answered. She mentioned a show she'd started watching, laughing too loudly at her own description. I listened, not coldly, just neutrally. By Wednesday, there was pie cooling on the windowsill. Thursday, she left a note with my lunch, folded neatly in the paper bag. "Hope today is light. Let me know if I should wait for you." I didn't respond. It wasn't punishment. I wasn't interested in playing the same game she was. This wasn't about ignoring her until she cracked. It was about keeping my footing. The quiet between us wasn't revenge. It was the only honest thing left. On Friday, she broke. We were in the living room. The TV was on, muted. I was scrolling through emails, half watching a silent rerun. Sandra sat across from me, one leg tucked under the other, biting her thumbnail in a way she hadn't since her father's funeral. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped the remote on the coffee table with a dull thud. "Are you ever going to stop this?" she asked, her voice thin but tense. I didn't look up. "Stop what?" This Cold War," she snapped. "You come home, you nod. You eat the food, and you sit there like I'm a stranger in my own house." I set my phone down calmly and looked at her. "You're not a stranger. You're just someone I don't know how to trust anymore." Her face twitched. "You think I'm lying to you." "I don't know what I think," I said softly. "That's the part one can't get past." "I told you," she said. "There's no one else." "You heard me say it, Michael." "Words are cheap," I replied, leaning back into the sofa. "You didn't even ask me why I offered you the house and the divorce. You didn't even ask if I was serious. You just panicked. That's because you blindsided me." I raised a brow. "You think offering peace is a weapon?" Sandra stood up fast. "I am trying, Michael. I've been trying all week. Cooking, talking, pretending like." She stopped. "Fine, but you're not giving me anything back." "I didn't ask you to pretend." She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "So what do you want from me? You want me to confess to something I didn't do? You want me to break down so you can win this little battle you started?" I shook my head slowly. "I want the truth, not a performance." She froze for a second, then dropped her gaze. "I've never touched your phone," I continued. "Never gone through your things, never followed you. But I hear things, Sandra. I see the shift. And I'm not going to lower myself to recording your calls or stalking your calendar just to prove I'm not crazy." Her voice cracked. "So you just sit there waiting, watching, like I'm some puzzle you're trying to figure out." "I sit here because I'm still hoping the woman I married will tell me the truth without having to be cornered into it." Silence. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in days, she didn't say a word. No defense. No protest. She just stood in the middle of the living room like a kid waiting for a punishment that never came. That quiet between us, it wasn't about punishment anymore. It was the sound of truth being backed into a corner, and it had nowhere left to run. It was barely 3:30 when I pulled into the driveway. The sky was unusually clear for a Tuesday. Sunlight spilled across the front lawn like it had something to prove. I'd left work early. One of our shipments was delayed, and my schedule opened up unexpectedly. I didn't call ahead. No real reason. Maybe I just wanted to see what the house looked like when no one was expecting me. As I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was the quiet. Not the heavy kind that hangs in the air after a fight, just that plain, hollow silence of an empty house. Or so I thought. Then I heard a shuffle near the hallway. Sandra appeared fast, her eyes wide, a layer of sweat on her forehead, strands of hair stuck to the side of her face. She was holding a hair tie in one hand and smoothing her blouse with the other. Not gym clothes, just regular casual wear. But she looked flushed, rushed, like she hadn't expected anyone to see her. "Michael," she said out of breath. "You're home early." I paused at the edge of the hallway. "Yeah." Things slowed down at the shop. She stood very still, tucking her hair back, her fingers shaking a little too much to be normal. I studied her for a moment, not accusing, just reading. "Were you expecting someone?" I asked quietly. She blinked fast. "What? Were you expecting someone?" Sandra laughed a little too quickly. "No, of course not. I was just finishing a workout. You surprised me." My eyes drifted past her shoulder. The door to the guest bathroom was slightly open. The faint smell of deodorant, or maybe cologne, hung in the air, but it was subtle, faint enough to make me doubt myself. "I see," I said. She gestured toward the living room. "I've been doing online yoga again. You remember that instructor with the British accent? I picked it back up this week." I followed her gaze. Sure enough, a yoga mat was unrolled on the living room floor, bathed in afternoon light. A towel was folded neatly beside it. A half-empty bottle of lemon water sat on the side table. Everything looked perfectly normal. Still, something in my gut didn't sit right. "You okay?" I asked finally. Sandra tilted her head. "Why wouldn't I be? You just seem startled." "I didn't hear you come in," she said. "That's all. You never get home this early." I nodded slowly. Then, without a word, I stepped into the living room and sat on the armrest of the couch. The sunlight was warm on my back. The room felt clean, untouched, too untouched. "I didn't mean to interrupt," I said. She wiped at her forehead with her sleeve. "It's fine." I was done anyway. We sat there for a moment, the air filled with nothing but the ticking of the wall clock. No phone buzzing. No voice from the next room. No obvious sign of a door closing softly. It was just us and that strange, flat, still, innocent quiet. For a moment, I questioned myself. Maybe I'd let the tension of the last few weeks cloud my judgment. Maybe there was no one. Maybe what I'd seen in her wasn't guilt, but grief, a different kind of panic. She moved to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. Her hands were steadier now. "You want anything?" she asked, like nothing unusual had happened. I shook my head. "I'm good." She leaned against the counter, watching me. Her face had softened. No anger, no sarcasm, just quiet observation. "It's nice," she said. "You being home early?" I nodded again. "Yeah, it is." I left it there, because whether I'd walked in on a lie or just a woman fixing her hair after yoga, I wasn't sure anymore. And that uncertainty scared me more than anything else. The waiting room smelled like chamomile and printer paper. Sandra sat beside me on the fake leather couch, legs crossed neatly, her perfume a little stronger than usual. She'd dressed deliberately, soft colors, minimal makeup, and even wore the necklace I gave her years ago when we still believed in anniversaries. Across from us, a small waterfall bubbled over smooth stones. Everything about the clinic was designed to feel safe. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to comfort me or trick me into saying something I'd regret. "Michael Reynolds?" A voice called gently. We both stood up. The therapist, Dr. Mara Dawn, was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held both warmth and a quiet sharpness. She greeted us with a professional calm, like she'd seen 1,000 versions of whatever was about to unfold. Her office was small, diplomas on one wall, 2 armchairs angled toward a couch. Sandra immediately took the couch. I sat beside her, not close, not distant, just enough room to breathe. Dr. Dunn folded her hands in her lap. "So," she began, "what brings you both here today?" Sandra jumped in first. Her tone was smooth, composed. "We've just hit a rough patch," she said with a nervous chuckle. "Miscommunication. You know how these things go." Dr. Dunn nodded politely. "Michael." I met her eyes. "I don't think I know how these things go." Sandra glanced sideways at me, her smile tightening. I added, "We've been together 13 years. And lately, I feel like I'm sitting next to someone I don't recognize." Dr. Dunn didn't interrupt. She just watched both of us, taking notes occasionally, letting the silence stretch when needed. Sandra talked more than I did, about stress, work, how I'd become emotionally distant. She said she felt shut out, said I'd pulled away after one misunderstanding. She kept her voice measured, almost gentle. I listened. I didn't argue. I just answered what I was asked. No, I haven't accused her of anything. Yes, I've offered her a clean way out. No, she didn't take it. By the time the session wrapped up, Dr. Dunn gave the kind of soft smile therapists use when they're not ready to give you the full truth yet. "Thank you both for being here," she said. "I'd like to see you again next week." Sandra nodded eagerly. "Absolutely." I stood and reached for my coat, but Dr. Dunn raised a hand. "Michael, do you mind staying just a moment?" Sandra looked between us, confused. "Is everything okay?" Dr. Dunn smiled. "Yes, I just want to speak with Michael briefly about scheduling. I'll walk you out in a moment." Sandra hesitated, then nodded slowly and stepped out into the hallway. Once the door closed, the room felt smaller. Dr. Dunn's expression shifted. "Listen," she said, her voice low. "I don't normally say this after a first session, but I think you need to hear it." I didn't move. "She's performing," she said plainly. Her words and her emotional cues don't match up. It's subtle, but it's there, and it's not stress. I stared at her, not sure what to say. "I don't know what she's hiding," Dr. Dunn added, "but she's afraid you'll find out. Not afraid of losing the marriage. Afraid of being exposed." I nodded once. It wasn't relief I felt. It was confirmation, which felt even worse. Dinner was quiet. Not strained, not tense, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when both people know something big is coming, but neither wants to go first. Sandra had made pasta, her olive oil and lemon version, light, familiar. 2 glasses of wine sat on the table, untouched. The dim overhead light flickered softly, casting long shadows across the plates. I ate slowly. She didn't. Finally, I set my fork down and looked at her across the table. "I don't trust you anymore," I said evenly. She froze. Her hand hovered in the air with her wine glass. Her eyes, wide and soft, met mine like she hadn't expected me to say that out loud. Michael, her voice was almost a whisper, please don't say that. I'm saying it because it's the truth. Sandra reached across the table, her fingers brushing the edge of my hand. I know I haven't been perfect, and I know I've pulled back, but I haven't done anything to deserve this. I didn't pull away from her touch, but I didn't lean in either. You say that, I murmured, but your eyes say something else. You're hiding something. Even Dr. Dunn saw it. She blinked fast, caught off guard. Wait, you stayed after. What did she say? That you're afraid of being exposed. Not afraid of losing me. Afraid of being found out. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She leaned back slowly, folding her hands in her lap. For a long time, she just stared at her plate. Then her shoulders dropped, and her voice changed, softer, pleading, exhausted. I don't want us to end like this. I didn't respond. She leaned forward again, both elbows on the table now, her face more open than I'd seen in weeks. Let's take a trip, she said. Just us. Get away for a bit. No phones, no therapy, no work, a reset. My brow lifted. A vacation? Yes. Please. We need this. We used to laugh all the time. Remember when we drove up to Vermont and you got stuck in that snowbank because you swore you didn't need chains? I cut her off. You want me to forget everything and just pretend? No, she said quickly. I want us to fix it. But we can't fix anything if we're living like strangers. I stared at her for a long time. Her eyes were full, but no tears fell. The performance was still there, but there was something else, too. Fear. I'll go, I said finally. But you need to understand something. She waited, not blinking. This is the last time I extend trust, I said. If you lie again, if I even sense dishonesty, it's over. There won't be another conversation. Sandra nodded fast, too fast. I understand. I stood and began gathering the plates. She stood too, moving around the table slowly like she was walking toward a cliff. Then she hugged me tight, desperate, both arms wrapped around my waist, her cheek pressed against my chest. She held on for too long, and I didn't move. My arms stayed at my sides, my eyes locked on the dark window beyond the dining table. In the glass, I could see our reflection, her clinging to me like I was her last grip on something slipping away, and me staring straight ahead, unmoved. She didn't notice, or pretended not to. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't say anything back, because deep down, I didn't feel like the man she was thanking. I felt like someone watching the last breath of a marriage neither of us had the courage to bury. Sandra loved being the center of attention. Always had. That night, she worked the room like it was a stage. Her birthday party wasn't huge, just a dozen friends from the neighborhood, a couple of coworkers, and Laura from next door, who'd brought a bottle of rose and her usual loud laugh. The living room was full of clinking glasses, polite music, and the warm hum of people who had no idea a marriage was quietly dying under their feet. I stuck to the edges, refilling drinks, answering small talk with short answers. Sandra, meanwhile, floated from person to person, wearing a deep burgundy dress I hadn't seen in years. She looked beautiful and tired. Somewhere around glass 4, maybe 5, her laughter got too loud. The kind of laugh that fills a room but doesn't land on anything real. And then, at some point, someone brought up the cruise. You lucky thing, Laura said, raising her glass. I haven't seen the ocean in 10 years. Sandra smiled thinly, leaning against the back of the couch. Her lipstick was starting to smudge at the corners. Yeah, well, cruises are overrated. Salt water, screaming kids, fake lobster. Laura laughed. Still beats running payroll on a Monday. That's when someone else asked, so, when are you two leaving? All eyes turned to us. Sandra swirled the wine in her glass, her eyes glassy now. Oh, Michael's going alone, she said, her voice lilting. It's a solo honeymoon, apparently. The room chuckled awkwardly. I didn't. Someone tried to joke it away, but Sandra lifted her hand, waving them off. No, really, she added with a sharp smile. Go on your honeymoon alone. I don't care. The room went quiet. She wasn't joking anymore. Then Laura, bless her terrible timing, leaned in with a grin and said, well, if he's going solo, I'll go with him then. It was meant to be funny. But the second the words left her mouth, Sandra's head whipped around. Her tone shifted instantly. No, you won't. The room froze. Laura blinked, surprised. I know what you were just, Sandra cut in, her voice hard and clipped. Don't be cute. Laura's smile faded. Okay, chill. It was a joke. I kept my drink in hand, eyes on Sandra. You're the one who told me to go, I said calmly. We talked about this. Sandra looked at me, then at everyone else, then back again, realizing too late the room had fallen out from under her. The silence stretched. I glanced around and gave the faintest nod to a neighbor, then turned back to Sandra. Maybe we should cut the cake. Someone murmured agreement. Sandra just stood there, still clutching her wine glass like it was holding her up. A few people wandered toward the dining table. The music was suddenly too loud. Laura muttered something about needing to check on her dog and slipped toward the door. Sandra didn't follow. She stayed frozen near the couch, blinking slowly, staring into her glass. I stood beside her, my voice low enough for only her to hear. You asked for this trip. If you didn't mean it, you should have said so. But we both know you did. She turned slightly, the edge of her expression cracking under the effort to hold it together. I didn't think you'd actually go. I told you what this was, I said flatly. And I meant it. A long breath left her lips. Do you even care if we fix this? I looked at her carefully, watching the flicker of desperation settle under the wine and pride. I care about honesty, I said. That's where fixing things starts. Not over wine, not over jealousy, just truth. She blinked again, slower this time. I left her there, still gripping the glass, while the others sang something awkward around a half-hearted birthday candle. And I realized something as I watched her from across the room. She had wanted control, not clarity, not peace, just the reins. But now she stood in the middle of her own party, and no one knew how to help her off the stage. Not even me. The ship was massive, white, and gleaming like something pulled out of a catalog. People milled around the terminal with excitement, suitcases trailing behind them, laughter echoing over the intercom. Everyone around me looked like they were about to make memories. I wasn't. Laura showed up 10 minutes before boarding, wearing sunglasses even though we were inside. She rolled her carry-on with one hand and gave me a quiet, measured smile when she spotted me. I wasn't sure if you were actually going through with it, she said, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. I paid for 2 tickets, I replied. Figured I might as well use them. She nodded slowly. Right? No point letting them go to waste. We didn't hug, didn't make a thing of it. We just walked toward the gangway and boarded together like 2 people who had no idea what to say next. The room they gave us was bigger than I expected. 2 twin beds, clean sheets, a balcony with a view of the open sea. Laura claimed the bed by the window without asking. I didn't care. That night, after the lifeboat drill and a forgettable dinner buffet, we found ourselves at the back of the ship, leaning against the rail. The sea was black and quiet, the moonlight slicing silver across the waves. Laura took a sip of her drink. You don't have to explain anything, you know. I'm not going to, I said. She smirked. Good. We stood there for a while, the wind pulling at her hair, the hum of the engines a low, steady background noise. It's weird, she said after a long silence. Being here like this after. Well, everything back home. It's not about you, I said. She looked at me, brows raised. I clarified. This isn't some rebound thing. This isn't about getting back at Sandra. I just needed distance, and I needed to be the one who chose it. Laura nodded slowly. Understood. She didn't ask any more questions. We just looked out over the dark water, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Eventually, she excused herself, said she was turning in early. I stayed alone. I leaned over the railing and watched the trail of white foam stretch behind the ship like a disappearing road. This wasn't how my life was supposed to look. I thought about the man I was 5 years ago, the one who used to come home early just to surprise Sandra with takeout and a dumb movie she'd already seen. The man who worked double shifts to afford that trip to Santa Fe she swore she needed. The man who forgave small lies because he believed in the bigger truth of us. Now here I was on a boat meant for celebration, standing next to silence and watching my marriage fall apart 1 mile at a time. I didn't feel free. I didn't feel angry, just tired, like something in me had gone quiet, not dead, just done. The wind was sharp that afternoon. The upper deck had emptied out. Most people had gone inside for trivia or the buffet, but I stayed. I needed the wind, the movement, the sound of something bigger than myself. I rounded the corner by the pool and saw Laura sitting alone on a bench near the railing. Her hair was pulled up in a messy bun, but a few strands were whipping loose in the wind. She was hunched over, elbows on her knees, eyes fixed on the floor, shoulders shaking. She was crying. I slowed down, unsure whether to walk away or offer something. She didn't hear me approach. "Laura," I said gently. She wiped at her face quickly, trying to pull herself together. "Hey," she said with a shaky voice. "Didn't think anyone else would be out here." I sat down on the other end of the bench, keeping some distance. "You okay?" She gave a short, unconvincing laugh. "Not really." I waited, let her find her own way there. Laura sniffed, looked out toward the choppy waves. Then she said it, quiet and fast, like it had been sitting in her throat too long. "I need to tell you something." I didn't respond. She turned her head toward me, eyes red but clear now. "Sandra's been seeing someone." The words didn't surprise me, but hearing them out loud, that hit differently. "How long?" I asked, my voice low. 6 months, she said. "At least. Maybe longer." The wind blew harder. I didn't move. "He comes when you're at work?" she continued. "She lets him in through the back gate. Parks 2 streets over. She thinks no one notices." Laura gave a bitter smile. "But she's not as careful as she thinks." I stared out at the ocean. "I've seen him leave," she whispered, 3 times. My jaw clenched, but I said nothing. Laura looked down at her hands. "I should have told you a long time ago, but I didn't know how." I turned to her slowly. "Why didn't you?" She bit her lip. "Because once I told you, you couldn't unknow it. And I didn't want to be the reason your family fell apart. It was already broken," I said. She nodded, her eyes filling again. "I just thought maybe she'd stop. Maybe it was just a phase, or maybe she'd come to her senses." I told myself it wasn't my place, that it wasn't my marriage. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "You thought I didn't already know. I thought you suspected," she said. "But you still wore your ring. You still showed up. Because I was waiting to be wrong." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I'm sorry, Michael." I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. The wind howled between us, filling the space where explanations no longer mattered. I stood slowly and turned toward the railing. I looked out at the water, wide, indifferent, endless. "Thank you," I said. Laura looked confused. "For telling me when it finally mattered," I added. She didn't follow me when I walked away. I didn't cry, didn't feel rage, just that same cold stillness I'd been carrying for weeks. It wasn't about losing Sandra anymore. It was about realizing, finally, that she'd never really been mine to lose. The suitcase wheels clicked across the tile with a rhythm I didn't try to hide. I walked straight through the front door. No pause, no deep breath. I wasn't coming home. I was walking into a courtroom with carpet and curtains. The trial had already started in my mind. Sandra was on the couch, wrapped in a gray throw blanket, one leg curled under her. A book sat open in her lap, but she wasn't reading. She looked up when the door opened and flinched when she saw my face. "Michael," she said like my name was a question. I didn't answer. I set the suitcase by the stairs and walked into the living room like I owned the place, because I did. I stopped in front of her and said it plainly, "I know." She blinked. "Know what?" I tilted my head, my voice flat. "The man. The 6 months. The back gate. The car parked 2 streets over. You want me to keep going?" Her face went pale. The blanket slipped from her shoulders. Michael, please, it's not what you think." "No," I cut in sharply. "It's exactly what I think. And more." Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Her hands were shaking in her lap. "I gave you chances," I continued slowly. "Opportunities, silence, space. I waited for the truth to come from you, but it never did. Michael, wait. Just listen to me. I'm not interested in your version." She stood up fast. "It was a mistake. He's nothing to me. It's over. It's been over for weeks." "Don't," I said, raising my hand. "Don't lie when you're still out of breath." Her jaw twitched. Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered. I was lonely, and I made the worst mistake of my life." "No," I said calmly. "You made 6 months of choices. That's not a mistake." That silence between us, it cracked, split wide open. She reached for my arm. "Michael, please. I'm sorry. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the moment you decided I didn't deserve the truth." I stepped back. Then I pulled a file folder from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. Sandra's eyes fell on it. Pages of contact logs, timestamps, Laura's written statement, a signed retainer from the attorney I'd already called. Her hand went to her mouth. I didn't want to do it this way, I said. But I'm not giving you another chance to twist this. I've already filed. Her breath caught. Filed for what? Divorce. Civil infidelity claim. I'm pressing for division of assets based on misconduct. She swayed a little, steadying herself against the couch. You can't, Michael. I'll lose everything. I looked her dead in the eyes. You lost everything the moment you decided your wants mattered more than our vows. Tears spilled now, falling fast. She dropped to her knees, hands on mine. Please don't do this, she whispered, her voice cracking. Please, I still love you. I never stopped. I pulled my hand free. No, I said. You never started. She cried harder, but I didn't kneel beside her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout or curse. I walked into the kitchen, opened the drawer, and pulled out the key to the guest room. You'll sleep in there until I'm gone, I said. You'll hear from my attorney in the next 48 hours. She tried to follow, but her knees buckled. She collapsed into a heap of fabric and sobs at the edge of the couch. Michael, she called after me. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't leave like this. I didn't turn around, because the man she'd betrayed, he had already left. All that remained now was the cleanup. I zipped the last suitcase slowly. Not because I needed more time. Everything I owned that mattered had already been packed days ago, but because I wanted her to hear it, the sound of closure, of finality. Sandra stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face pale and tired. She hadn't spoken much since I'd served her the papers. No more tears, no more begging, just silence. The kind of silence that only comes when denial finally fades and dread takes its place. I lifted the suitcase off the bed and set it down near the door. That's when I heard it, a soft thud behind me. Sandra had dropped to her knees. Michael, please, she said, clutching at the hem of my jeans. Don't do this. Not like this. I didn't look down. Get up. She didn't move. Her fingers curled around the fabric tighter. I'm not letting you leave me like I'm nothing, she whispered. You made yourself nothing the day you stopped being honest, I said quietly. Her grip trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you. That made me laugh once, dry and without any humor. You meant to lie? You meant to hide. You just didn't think I'd catch you. I panicked. I thought it was temporary. I didn't think it would go that far. You let someone into our house, I interrupted, finally turning to face her. Into our space, our life. You disrespected everything we built. Tears welled again. I know. I'm not interested in guilt, I said. I'm interested in one thing. What? She looked up at me, eyes red and glassy. Why did you lie to my face for months? Her lips quivered. She looked like she wanted to reach for something. My hand, my forgiveness, some version of herself she still hoped I believed in. Then she said it. Because you were too reliable. My jaw clenched. What does that even mean? I got comfortable, she said, her voice barely audible. You never left. You never shouted. You just kept being good, and I felt invisible, like I didn't matter. I stared at her. You cheated on me because I didn't hurt you? I didn't cheat to hurt you, she said quickly. I didn't even want him. It wasn't love. It was just a distraction. A distraction from what? I finished. She nodded weakly. I don't know what I was doing. I thought I could keep both things, you and whatever that was. I pulled my suitcase toward the doorway. You can't have both. She reached out and grabbed the edge of my coat. Please, just stay one more night. Talk to me. Yell. Do something. I looked down at her hand, then met her eyes. I'm going to Dean's, I said, my voice level. I'll be gone a week. When I come back, I expect this house empty. Your name off the bills. Keys on the counter. Sandra's mouth opened, but no sound came. I stepped past her. She didn't follow. For once, she understood the conversation was over. And for the first time in weeks, so did I. Dean's bar wasn't fancy, but it was quiet. The kind of place where no one asks questions unless you want them to. Dim lights, dark wood, no music, just the low murmur of conversation and the occasional clink of ice in a glass. I sat across from him, sipping something dark and slow. My suitcase was still in the back seat of my car, untouched. I hadn't even changed clothes. Dean leaned back in his chair, studying me. So that's it. Yeah, I said. That's it. He didn't ask for details. That's what I appreciated about Dean. He waited for whatever you were ready to share. She say anything? She said I was too reliable. That she got comfortable. Dean let out a short, low whistle. That's a new one. I nodded, watching the way the amber liquid caught the light. Apparently, Not causing damage makes you invisible. Dean sipped his drink. Some people only know how to love when things are broken. It's the fixing that makes them feel needed or important. I added. I wasn't chaos, so she invented some. Sounds like she mistook your stability for weakness. I looked up at him. She didn't realize quiet doesn't mean blind. Dean shrugged. Comfort's a strange thing. People say they want it, but sometimes they'll burn it down just to feel the heat again. We sat there in silence for a moment. Then I said, she begged, not to go, not to end it like this. And you? I walked. Dean leaned forward slightly. Good. A couple near the bar laughed at something low and private. Glasses clinked again. A waitress passed behind us without a word. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I thought I'd feel empty, I said. But I don't. Dean gave me a knowing look. That's because you never gave her the power to take something from you. I nodded slowly. She broke the trust, but she didn't break me. Exactly. I finished my drink and set the glass down gently. For the first time in months, I felt still, not happy, not healed, but still. And in a world full of noise and betrayal, that was enough for now. That was the end of my story. But let me ask you something. Laura stayed silent for 6 months, knowing what Sandra was doing behind my back. She said she didn't want to be the reason our family fell apart. But was her silence protecting us, or just protecting herself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did she do the right thing? And if this story pulled you in, go ahead and like the video and hit subscribe. I've got more to tell.